Welcome back to BAS 121, Chapter 12. Now we're going to show you one classification technique called K-nearest. So I've taken our modified credit approval decision information, and it's modified because I've changed the homeowners and the decision variable to numeric data, which you need to do, right? So we just put if statements in there. One is they own a home. One is the decision is left. Yes. Now, first thing we're going to do is we're going to partition our data mining. We're going to partition it, which you've seen before. We're going to take this information and we're going to partition it in 60/40 into a training and a validation data set. So we'll hit OK. And not surprisingly, it's going to give us a training and a validation, 30 in the training, 20 in the validations. Okay, so we're all, notice it also gives us down here some pretty good information. It tells us which ones are in which validation training set. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do some classification of this data. Let's do the K-nearest, which we talked about. Notice we're doing it on our data partitioned worksheet, not our raw data. It'll give us the data range. We've got all the input variables I've moved over here. In the output variable is a decision. We want two classes. That means we want an approved or disapproved. We want success to be defined as a 1. So that's just convention. 1 is success, 0 is failure, and we want it to be based on over 50% is a success. So let's hit next here, and we want to normalize the data. Now, how many nearest neighbors do we want to pick from? Remember, we talked about, what nearest neighbor is new data comes in and we say, John, who's John's credit file closest to? And whoever it's closest to, whatever we did with that one, we'll do with John's. But we might want to pick the 1 closest neighbor or the 5 closest neighbors or the 3 closest neighbors. Well, let's select the 5 closest neighbors. Now, this scoring options is kind of neat. I can score specifically on the 5 nearest neighbors, or I can select, score on the best score between 1 and 5. So the computer will automatically score each one somewhere between 1 and 5 and give me the best one, which is normally what you want to do. So we're not going to score new data next. We're going to go back and do that in a second. I'll show you how to score new data, which is very valuable. But let's just finish just to take a look at what model it's going to give us. So here it gives us the model and the parameters that it used. And notice down here, it's saying it's giving us the best one is a K of 2. Notice here in the training set, remember we have 30 in the training set. We have 2 misclassifications. There you can see the number of errors. So about 6%. And it also gives us what's it tests that model against the classification of the validation set. So we got about a 10% error on the validation set. So we've got a pretty good classification model here. Now, if we go back to this step 2 of this, we can say, let's score new. I want to say this, and I want to say 5 again. Sorry. Score on the best. And I want to score some new data. So now I'm going to say in worksheet, and I'm going to say, find me that credit decisions. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I've got all of these new credit scores down here that have come in for evaluation. So I'm going to highlight those, and I'm going to say, since luckily we've named all the variables the same, I want to match my variables. So what I'm doing now is, so let's think about what we did. We went to K-nearest, and we evaluated both on our training and validation data sets. And we found we have a pretty good model with a K of 2. Now we're taking all this new customers who have credit scores, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and we're going to make decisions based on our K nearest model. So we'll hit OK. And again, number nearest, and we'll say finished. Now, what it's going to give us if we say, let's see the score of the new. Notice it's new. So here's our new 6 new data sets, 6 new customers that came in. Here's the predicted, so we'll approve customer number 1, disapprove customer number 2, etc., etc., etc. It tells us who the nearest neighbors were, the credit scores, etc., etc., etc. So that's how we can use K nearest neighbor to classify, to come up with a good K, and to take new data and predict based on the K nearest neighbor. So that's an example of classification technique number 1, the K nearest.